So I recently finished Revelations 2 on the Nintendo Switch, and I must say, this port absolutely blows away the Vita version. Like, no contest. You want to play this game on the go? Then get it on the Switch. I just couldn't believe how good the graphics were. I mean, it was like playing an entirely different game. Granted, I will give credit where credit is due. The Vita version did include all the gameplay elements from the console version. Partner assist, inventory management, and weapon upgrades all made it over to the Switch. The only difference now is that it's a hell of a lot more enjoyable to play. You're actually having fun instead of fighting with a horrible frame rate this time. For those who are unaware, the Vita version of Revelations 2 was plagued with some of the worst cases of frame rate drops known to man. Not only that, but the load times were a little too long for my taste. Visually, the colors looked washed out and detail was pretty much nowhere to be seen. The Switch version completely fixes all this. Now you can see detail in the environments and ambient lighting actually exist. It's like they took a late generation PlayStation 3 game and put it on a handheld. Unfortunately, there are some gameplay elements that can cause the frame rate to dip. For example, those exploding zombies, or when the screen gets covered in that brown crap. Still, at its worst, it's nowhere near the travesty that it was on the Vita. The audio quality has also been improved. Everything just has a more crystal clear sound to it. It doesn't have that tinny or muffled sound that was apparent in the Vita version. Like I said earlier, if you want to play this on the go, get it on the Switch. I mean, this thing runs beautifully on Nintendo's handheld. So as I'm playing, I keep wondering to myself, how is this game going to handle the next scene? I remember a lot of the key areas that were less than stellar on the Vita, so whenever I was approaching that same exact part in the Switch version, I always get excited just to see how well it can handle it. And unsurprisingly, the Switch version does not disappoint. I'm sure many of you will remember a part in episode 2 where you come across a car that looks like, well, complete crap. Now, that's not because it's a rundown piece of you-know-what, but taking one look at it clearly shows the horrible port job done on the Vita. On the Switch, I could barely recognize that same exact car. I mean, it actually looks like a beat-up car now instead of like a piece of poop. The skybox looks nice too. This time, the clouds are clearly visible and can be seen moving across the sky. I don't know what the hell was going on with the Vita version. The improved texture and lighting also does wonders for some of the indoor levels, adding more of an atmospheric mood and sometimes completely changing the entire tone of the scene as well. The visual effects also look a lot better. Watching a monster disintegrate into nothing looks really cool. Hey, let me know if you guys agree with this. Now, is it just me, or does this remind you of like grape soda? Let me know in the comments below what this reminds you of. I think it looks like grape soda. Of course, there were two levels that I just couldn't wait to come across on the Nintendo Switch. The first being the fire escape at the Slaughter Factory. On the Vita, this was Frame Drop City. And to anyone here who disagrees, then you're simply lying to yourself. Just kidding. Don't hate me. On the Switch, the fire looks gorgeous and the frame rate is smooth throughout. I enjoyed this level more now because I can actually see what's going on. Oh god, just thinking about my time with this on the Vita gives me a headache. The other level would have to be the end boss fight. Oh my goodness, this fight was borderline broken on the Vita. I'm telling you, the frame rate must have dropped to like 10 frames, maybe even less. But on the Switch, it runs perfectly fine. I've said this earlier, but this port on the Switch really feels like a whole different game. The experience is just so much more enjoyable. The other great thing about this port of Revelations 2 on Switch is that image quality is consistent whether you're playing handheld or docked. I actually prefer the handheld mode since the color doesn't appear oversaturated as it does when it's in docked mode. But hey, that's just me. Either way, they still both look great. The frame rate is also stable as well, regardless of what mode I was playing in. Of course, video experts would beg to differ and can probably point out all the glaring issues with this video, but that's okay. Let me have it. The other advantage the Switch has over the Vita version would have to be the inclusion of a two-player co-op mode. Since each Joy-Con becomes a separate controller, starting a two-player co-op is super easy. And believe it or not, the single Joy-Con works pretty well. The only issue I had now was that controlling the camera now required that you aim a weapon to look around. I mean, it's not perfect, but on the casual setting, it works well, and it's definitely playable. Now, this is in no way me trying to put down the PlayStation Vita. I absolutely love the Vita, but as a gamer, I'd have to give props to the Switch for such an excellent port. Until Capcom brings home the other Resident Evil ports to the Switch, Revelations 2 is the best Resident Evil game to play on the go. Alright guys, if you want more info on Revelations 2, then check out my Resident Evil Revelations 2 review on the PlayStation Vita. Check it out if you're curious to see what that game looks like running at 10 frames a second. And if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. Do that and you'll help me buy more games to talk about. Later.